you're trying to win.
Well, good morning. We will call to order the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for August the 28th, 2014. You have been furnished copies of the proposed minutes for the July 24th meeting of this board. Are there additions or corrections? Shall we approve them?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the July 24th meeting. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Those minutes are approved. Item 3 is a consideration of the minutes of the August 14th special meeting of this board. Are there additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move that we accept the minutes.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the August 14th meeting. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. You have in your packet the MAPS 3 Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending June the 30th, 2014. David, you want to review that with us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet the MAPS 3 Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending June 30th, 2014. It's in its usual form. For the month on the revenue side, there was $8,980,577. For fiscal year, $107,858,288 for a total revenue of $416,743,359. On the expenditure side, for the month, $4,696,153. For the fiscal year, $32,493,572, and a total expenditures of $62,396,432. Then also you have the MAPS 3 Budget and Obligations Report for August 8th, 2014, and it is in the form that we've been providing to you. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Well, Michael Adams, we always start with you. Any questions or comments?
Well, I guess I'll just comment because it kind of stands out. I think the month target that says we're 9.4% below target for the month, which was a little bit, I think, a surprise when I saw it because I'd kind of been reading the papers that for the most part city revenues were up and sales tax revenues, but I've spoken to the MAPS office and that seems to be an anomaly with the target that was set. It was based off of last year's target for this particular month, and last year's target had last year's actual had some adjustments in it. And so it kind of overinflated, I think, probably the target for this month. And that's why it's showing what appears to be a decline when, in fact, I think it's probably much better results than what this indicates.
David, you've explained to us before, I guess it's footnoted in 1, that the percentage is based on the current projections updated annually by the city finance department, so they adjust those.
That's right.
The number that's also important to us is the noted in footnote 2, and that's the project target from the beginning, from inception of the project, and we're 5.7% ahead of the original projection.
That's correct.
So these negative numbers simply reflect as the target moves from month to month, they make new projections. Is that it?
That's exactly it.
Are there other questions about that? Been moved that we approve and accept the revenue and expenditure report. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The revenue report is received. David, you have a presentation for us today on the Convention Center area study?
We do, Mr. Chairman. Item 5 is presentation of Convention Center area study. You know, as we go along with the projects that we have in the downtown area where the Convention Center will go, there was questions about how that might develop, and it was determined that it would be best that we had a study done, and the Alliance was deemed the correct people to do that. So today we have Kathy O'Connor here with the Alliance for Economic Development to give us a presentation, so I'd like to invite her to the podium.
Welcome, Kathy.
Just make a few introductory comments, and then we'll let Todd Both and his team make a presentation about the plan. We started this several weeks ago when you were finalizing your decisions, or when the MAPS 3 Convention Center Subcommittee was finalizing their decisions and looking at the various concepts for the design of the Convention Center. There were a lot of questions about how would development happen around the Convention Center, how would the new Convention Center relate to the rest of the area, how important are the private development parcels that were identified in some of those concepts. So we thought that the best way to look at that was to look at the whole area and develop a concept plan for the entire context of the area around the new Convention Center. We had a variety of several different stakeholder meetings. We've met with a lot of people and had their input on what they felt were important as far as priorities for this area. And I think this plan really reflects all of the information we've received and the comments we've received. And we showed it to that stakeholder group yesterday and to the subcommittee on Tuesday. So with that, I'll turn it over to Todd Voth.
Welcome, Todd.
Well, good morning. Good to see you all. My name is Todd Voth. I'm responsible for the Populous Convention Center planning and design practice in Kansas City. And we've had the good fortune as a company to do a lot of work here in your city, and we started out being involved in the site selection for the convention center, which led us to the site that we're on. We've done a lot of due diligence on that, followed by being engaged to do the concept plan for the convention center itself, and we proceeded through most of that, and then we all stood back and said, now we want to make sure that we get this right with the district, because one of the emerging trends in convention center design is not just about the building, but it's about how that building fits inside the district that it's in and how that district can be maximized to do what you need it to do for your community and also for your guests. So we have this presentation today. We very much want you to see it and offer comment and questions. After this, then we will proceed on with the completion of the concept design for the convention center, which is a logical kind of interaction between the two. So I'd like to introduce Alma Dusoleil from our San Francisco office. She's a senior planner, and she's been heavily engaged in this. So, Alma? Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us here. I'm going to run through this presentation. Let me just check this thing. I just clicked, right? Okay. We have prepared this presentation. It's quite comprehensive, but in the interest of time, I'm going to try to run really quickly on the first two segments and jump into what you see as number 3, which is the actual concept plan as a result of our couple-month-long process. But just before I do that, there are 3 main goals or objectives to this study as a complement to the design of the convention center that will move forward. The first one, the main task that we had at hand, was to look at what are the potential sites around the convention center that would be available or more appropriate for some private development. We were also tasked in looking at what would be the character that district can potentially have to make the whole CBD better and the district itself very thriving. And then lastly, they asked us to look into how do we provide a mixture of uses and a proposal of land use that will facilitate a really pedestrian experience. So we did a thorough analysis of many of the factors that that affect the decisions made for this plan in the study area. You can see this as just the boundary defining what was determined as the study area, bordered by Sheridan to the north, 4th Street to the south, Walker Avenue to the left, and then Gaylord to on the edge, with the convention center in the middle. Again, we looked at a lot of cultural factors. We look at what is the idea of density here, what kind of potential we have in comparison to its context. You can see the current condition and the planned condition. We looked at this as a future image, as the future context of what this district will be based on all the relevant plans that have been adopted or are being implemented currently in the area, from the Crosstown Boulevard to the Quarter Shore, intermodal hub, and of course all the MAP Streets projects, including Downtown Park. The convention center itself, the concept design that was developed initially, inform this plan as well, specifically the location of the current proposal for the convention center, and even anticipating a potential expansion in the future played a role in some of the decisions that we show in what we call the concept master plan. And some of the principles dictated or established with the convention center also helped us kick off this process, specifically the idea of embracing the city and going beyond the walls of the convention center building itself. So we, as Kathy mentioned, we had a number of sessions with different stakeholders to obtain input, make sure that we were considering all the factors that are relevant, and we collected that input and summarized it into a number of aspirations, namely connectivity, density, urban form, and finding the right balance of amenities were things that were taken into account. The concept plan looks in summary to 15 what we call potential or opportunity sites, and we basically look at what were the land uses that were more appropriate in those individual lots. We did a number of exercises to figure out what is the right location for each lot. In these diagrams, you see how we were testing different priorities for each one of the sites. Then we launched a stage in which we considered 2 scenarios where we were testing different amounts of density for each and potentially different ways to incorporate the open space that surrounds those lots. And that led us to, again, what I'm presenting today, which is the strategies for the actual concept master plan. The initial aspirations that came from discussions with a number of stakeholders turned into a series of basic principles that are one of the main messages that we're trying to convey with this plan. Connectivity at the top, making sure that whatever happens in this district, whatever is envisioned, really makes this the linchpin, the connector between Bricktown, the CBD, the future Court Shore. Really, this is the place where all of these factors come together. And so it was important as we make decisions that remained. Encouraging smart density that is compatible with the CBD and the future growth to Court Shore. Very much attention to what is the urban form that belongs here that would create the space and the type of city that we all want, and the diversity of amenities. So these principles led us to creating, this is a big picture concept. The district is, as you know, basically bordered by 2 main open spaces in Oklahoma, the Myriad Gardens and the future MAPS 3 downtown park. So the concept for the district really is hinged on the idea that those parks become the spine of the heart of the district, with the convention center sitting as a jewel in this sort of idea of a prairie instead of a border. Rather, it's an element that attracts and connects. Surrounded by density that really reflects the growth that could come from the CBD and the potential for creating enough presence of people and diversity of uses for a 24/7 type of space. Not only a convention center that is only active when there's an event, but rather a day in, day out type of urban environment. The land use for all the different sites is basically mixed use. So what we focus on this plan is really what you see in this graphic, which is what we call the program. What goes on top? What is the sandwich of potential uses that can be accommodated, and what is the right mixture and density and bulk that actually can go in each one of them? So what we concluded in this process is that we can have a higher density node, if you may, around Myriad Gardens, naturally extending from the financial district, the CBD, as a little lower density or smaller buildings. Once you get around the convention center as again is the jewel within the parks, and then as you cross south of the boulevard, even lower density, more flexible, in essence, allowing for some residential and potential use of office, etc. We incorporated a couple of things in all of the lots, as much as possible where appropriate, retail at the street level to create a very active, dynamic sidewalk condition, and integrated parking on structure within the same buildings. You can see in this image then kind of the stacking diagram, and it gets a sense of a little bit the scale of how many stories it goes from, again, this progression between much higher buildings and more office-oriented uses all the way to the boulevard where it begins to mix a little more. Zooming in, again, within the district, there is that core area with mainly office buildings with a level of retail at the street level surrounding Myriad Gardens, the convention center as sort of this iconic building on the corner, and the parks connecting. You can see on what is labeled as number 3 in this map, in this diagram, we included the potential anticipated or potential expansion of the convention center in the future. So this vision also includes or considers the potential growth of the convention center in the future. Looking in the core area where the convention center sits, the companion hotel for the convention center is also located there, placed in a way that allows for a very clear transition between the two parks. And the site was labeled as number 6. We tested a number of different potential uses, and we landed at a conclusion that that could be a good spot for another cultural amenity that would complement the convention center or add a second amenity within the park, again, in this idea of the sequence of sites that could be destinations and connectors. South of the boulevard and near the arena, again, this is the area where we left much bigger flexibility. The use that is indicated there with the light blue is flexible. It could go more office or residential with a mid-density, sort of mid-rise capacity, transition into the yellow zone or the yellow blocks that you see here that are the residential that merges with the rest of Quarter Shore as it moves south. The current Cox Convention Center, it is envisioned here as a destination lifestyle retail on the 2 levels, breaking the big block into smaller blocks, so then it's almost like a concept of an outdoor mall in essence at the lower levels, with additional uses on top, from a hotel as a second hotel for the convention center and or the arena, and the offices facing Myriad Gardens, and even including some residential in some areas as a way to guarantee more of a 24/7 presence on the site. You can see in this view how then the vision looks very carefully at how the massing really sort of progresses from one end to the other to create that transition that was very clearly suggested and desired by a lot of our focus groups when we were talking at the beginning of the process. The sections only indicate how the sort of density comes down from closest to where Devon Tower locates and Sheridan, higher, taller buildings, and as you move south to the boulevard, the buildings in brown shown here sort of diminish their scale. All of them share in the commonality of having parking where available underground and integrated on second and third levels, so that the parking is integral with the building and not standalone structures. We looked at every one of the sites, their capacity and how much can be developed for, so as a reference to figure out what capacity this district has. In summary, what you see in your graphics represents about 9 million square feet of new development potentially coming into this district. And that includes a percent, which in this case equals about 18% of that area that is dedicated to parking within the structures. So it balances from office to hotel, retail of different categories, residential, and then what we call flex, which could be either office or residential in this instance, plus the cultural amenities already listed. We did a very quick just calculation to figure out what would be the capacity of the district for some parking, the conclusion being that we can hold a number of spaces, but the plan requires further study for a real comprehensive share parking approach in this district to really create the type of density we want and at the same time provide the services needed. The vision plan then goes into a little bit more detail, just looking at the specific street types. Since a lot of emphasis on the plan is in what happens at the pedestrian level, we wanted to classify some of the spaces, the types of sidewalks where we know there's retail, wider sidewalks for an amenity edge where potential outdoor seating could even happen. We made a suggestion in this plan to leave most of the mid-block alleys open as a pedestrian connector as well, instead of utilizing the entire block with a building. And this is the only aim is to really encourage further this permeability and pedestrian ease of movement. And these are just some examples of the dimensions going from a wider 20-foot sidewalk and the type of amenities you can accommodate there to a 17-foot sidewalk with smaller amenities and ample landscape, to 15 where you can have different types of amenities, and then the alleys where we're assuming that different elements can be permanent and semi-permanent. We looked at the open space resulting from this proposal and classified it in, obviously the main characters being the big parks, but it was very important for all of our stakeholders that the connections, the green connections were emphasized, and the plan really pays attention to how those things connect, from the Harvey connection in the middle of the convention center site proper, connecting the two parks, to the plazas that can hold some of the key corners in the district. Again, the boulevard or the paseo where the sidewalks are enhanced to provide ample movement there, and then the alleys as an additional open space amenity that we think is integral and would make the district quite unique. The plan then wraps up with just a look at, as we were developing these land uses, we were not only looking at the whole district, but we're also trying to understand what are the implications into what we call the sub-districts or the sub-areas that share particular commonalities. So the Cox Center redevelopment, obviously having the vocation for more of a retail hub connection with mixed use. Mirror Gardens envelope, really this higher density, almost envelope, really highlighting and celebrating the presence of this green jewel in the city. Hudson Corridor in our study, because we had all the parcels that really mediate between what is the convention center and the rest of Quarter Shore, allocated as the higher density with a very live street level frontage. And then the Crosstown Boulevard that in this vision plan begins to suggest that instead of a homogeneous approach to both sides of it, it's a much more dynamic and diverse type of uses that take you from office to the parks to the arena, et cetera. And that concludes the presentation of the concept plan, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Sorry, questions? Well, Sue and I had the chance to see this presentation to the Convention Center Subcommittee, and I've seen it with stakeholders as well. So any comments you'd want to make about it, Sue?
We were excited with the presentation, and I think personally for me, it just helped me appreciate a plan that's in place or that might help guide development. And I think as a committee, we just wanted that reassurance that we knew we weren't going to go tall. And we wanted to make sure that we were going to fit with possibilities in the area. And we don't really want to rule out any possibilities. So personally, I just think this is a nice plan that now people like Kathy have. So as we go energize and create action for our city, we've got some definite ideas about maybe best case scenarios. And of course, there's nothing rigid about this. It'll all change. We know there's going to be things that will adjust. But the committee was very encouraged by this report.
Todd, I had a question for you, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium. In part, this was commissioned to see if we all felt like we were on the right track with the site location and the preliminary design concepts. And so I guess I'm interested, since you've been involved in all of that from the beginning, in your opinion, do you feel more comfortable in light of what the study has revealed in the site location and the preliminary design, or or is there something bothersome about all this to you?
No, as a matter of fact, when you get into a planning activity, really what it does is establish a vision for what you want it to become. And the best thing for us was that we had participation from a wide range of community participants. And the fact is, you guys established a vision for this plan. And so what we developed was really an articulation of that vision. And so it was reinforcing to us, once we saw that develop, that we not only have the right site for the convention center, but you all have a really bright future in creating a district here that will really speak of Oklahoma City and be substantially different than other places. So I'm more encouraged now than I was before, and I was pretty encouraged in the first place. So it's been a good opportunity for us to circle back around and confirm what we thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kim?
I got to see this presentation yesterday, and I will guarantee you it's just as wonderful today as it was yesterday, and I'm sure to come forward. Three things really excite me about this, and some of it goes very back to the time where we were looking at site selection, and it came before this very advisory board. And we had some spirited discussion about where it would be. And one of the greatest considerations we had was that the convention center wasn't going to block the amazing views that could exist between our future downtown park and the Myriad Gardens. We've fulfilled that promise with this vision. The second was that Harvey Spine was an amenity that many people had a great endearment to, and we've now maintained Harvey Spine. The third thing that we heard very early on was that this convention center needed to be weaved into the fabric and the culture of our community, and exactly the way that it sits, with its open common areas, with its open alleyways and greens, it's been stitched into the center of our downtown district in Court Shore. And I'm just really pleased that we're following our vision, and it's looking real.
Anyone else? Michael?
Yeah, I did. My question may be more for Kathy, I guess, but this is a concept plan, I guess, that was commissioned more or less by the convention center study. But what happens now? Has it become part of your development plan? Does it go to the city planning department? I mean, how do these concepts get wrapped into the city's master plan, I guess, and make sure that somehow this is considered?
Well, we had a lot of input from the city planning department, and they're in the process of completing what they're going to call the downtown development framework. So a lot of the work that they've already done on that was incorporated into this plan. And that framework will help us inform the downtown design guidelines and review decisions that are made in the future. So a lot more information about street topologies and density and, how we want things to look downtown than what we have in our downtown design guidelines today. But it can also be used by me and my staff as we look at projects that come forward that need incentives or that want incentives. And use this as a way of guiding those projects to making sure that they are what fits in with the plan and helps us meet this vision. We want to make sure that we build density and that we honor the street and that we acknowledge the connections between the Myriad Gardens and the Central Park and the streetcar and all the other great things that are going on. So, we can use incentives and the desire for developers who need incentives to make sure they're delivering what we really want downtown. So that's how we'll use this. We also think it's a great, almost like a marketing piece, that we can use to take to developers to show that we have this vision of downtown and that there's this great opportunity to be a part of, developing this new district.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, if not, Kathy and Todd and Alma, thank you. We hope that you would engage a broad array of stakeholders, and you've done that. And you've provided something that's going to be very useful for our consideration in the future and we thank you for that effort. Kathy, you're an important part of this team, and we really appreciate all that you all are doing to help. Thanks a lot. All right, that brings us then to item 6 on the agenda. David, you want to tell us about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 4 to the MAPS 3 implementation and coordination agreement for the Core to Shore area entered into by the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority, increase of $237,500 retroactive to July 1st, 2014. This is the contract that we use for urban renewal to help us with the acquisition of the parkland. This went to the Park Subcommittee yesterday. They did not have a quorum, but those present agreed to move it forward to you.
Thank you. Cam, any comment you want to make about it?
I think David has stated that those that were in attendance yesterday, and it makes sense to continue forward in the manner that we have in making progress.
Do you have a motion regarding this resolution?
I would love to make a motion we approve.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution approving this amendment. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 7, David.
Item 7 in the agenda says recommend resolution approving trail alignment study report for MAPS 3 Phase 2 trail improvements, I-44 West Trail, project M3-T002. But you have been given a revised resolution, and during the presentation this will become much clearer, but during the presentation there was discussions about crossing Northwest Expressway, and I think we're all concerned about making sure that is a safe crossing, and we feel we have a safe crossing, but can never be safe enough, I suppose is safe to say. So the subcommittee has approved this new resolution that just asks that consideration be given for additional funding for an additional crossing at Northwest Expressway. So as I said, you'll see that more evident in the presentation. We'd like to invite Russell Kent up for presentation for this alignment study.
Welcome, Russell.
Good morning, guys. Like David mentioned, this is the I-44 West Trail, which is a proposed trail connecting the Oklahoma River to Lake Hefner. I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. It's a long trail, so I won't dwell on items. But if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to stop me, and there'll be opportunities at the end as well for questions. Here you see a project overview. The alignment recommendation is approximately 8.15 miles. Like I mentioned, that's connecting Lake Hefner with the Oklahoma River. What you see there is the budget for the project, $13.8 million, which includes land acquisition, the design, construction, contingency, all of the items. This is an alignment study. This is a project we've been working on for the last 6 to 8 months, and through collaboration with our design team as well as the MAPS office, we've met with members of the public as well as various stakeholders to develop an alignment connecting those 2 points. Essentially, our recommendation is based on some of the items listed there. The Trails Master Plan was the initial document that we took to develop guidelines for that in terms of what it needed to connect to. We also took into consideration the safety of the alignments, geometrics, of course, any constraints in terms of constructability and right-of-way, as well as which trail would connect residents and businesses in the best possible way. What you're looking at here is a typical section for this trail. It's a multi-use trail, which means anything other than a vehicle is intended to use it. Pedestrians and cyclists will be the primary users. 12 feet is the standard trail width. Asphalt is the standard trail material. That will vary somewhat depending on the location where we are, but where there is space, it will look very similar to what you see there. A quick overview of the alignment before we start looking at it. Like I mentioned, it's 8.15 miles. Preliminary cost estimates indicate that we're going to be within budget, the budget that was shown earlier. Share the Road was a one item that was discussed at various stages. By that, I mean, if we were to use a share the road trail, that would mean the bikes and or the pedestrians would be within the road, probably because there was, right-of-way constraints would not allow them to be off the road. That is something that we've not recommended at any point in this trail. We found an alignment that does not use that in anywhere, so that's definitely a positive for this trail. We're going to have grade separation crossings at 3 major intersections: Northwest 10th, the Union Pacific Railroad, as well as I-40. We're going to be going under or over those. There's a total of 3 creek crossings. That's just something to keep in mind in terms of the budget, where we'll probably need bridges. We're using the existing parking facility at Meridian, and we're also connecting the following points of interest that you see there. Those are all items that are identified by the Trails Master Plan, and we're able to offer connections to those with the recommended trail. What you're looking at there is a strip map, very small scale because it's rather a large distance, but that just sort of gives you an overview of where we're connecting. We'll look at that in more detail. As you can appreciate, there's almost an infinite number of possibilities of ways to connect these 2 points. This being an urban trail means there were a lot of things to consider, and as we go through the alignment, you'll start to see some of the reasons the trail was recommended as it's shown. So we'll begin on the north end, and I will quickly run through this, and this will, I assume, will help you develop any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. The north end connects to the existing Lake Hefner Trail at Meridian. At that location, there is an existing parking facility which we will use as the northern trailhead parking area. We will cross the Northwest Expressway at that location. Multiple points were considered on Expressway. This is an area that has relatively low traffic volumes when you compare it to other options such as Portland or May Avenue. The turn lanes at that location are also less than others. And we'll be utilizing the existing signals, and we'll upgrade that for pedestrian crossing. The trail will continue along Meridian all the way to Northwest 63rd on the east side of the street. At 63rd Street, it will follow the south side of 63rd all the way to Northwest Expressway, at which point it will utilize the wide right-of-way on Northwest Expressway, taking it to Portland Avenue. Here is a picture of the Meridian Avenue intersection. You can see the parking just across the street there. This is looking north, so this would be approximately the location that the trail would cross. You could see that the distance is not as great as some of the other opportunities to cross Expressway. As David mentioned, yesterday it was discussed that there would be, within the recommendation, we'll have an opportunity to build a bridge as and when funds are available. This is one location where a bridge could be constructed. There is available right-of-way, and we'll look at other options too if that comes to be. This is looking east on the south side of Northwest Expressway. You can see the wide right-of-way that I just talked about. That gives us an opportunity to construct the trail, which, remember, is only 12 feet, as far away from the road as possible. We've got in excess of 40 feet here, so we can be 20-plus feet away from the road. We'll probably have a separation barrier between the road and the trail, some kind of fence system just to offer a visual barrier between the traffic and the trail users. And the nice thing about this section, this is an area with no drive crossings, there are no street crossings, so it will be what we'd refer to as an uninterrupted trail for that section, so it will be a positive for trail users there. Moving on, we'll continue on the east side of Portland all the way to Northwest 56th Street. That's a connection to the Deaconess Hospital there. We'll cross over to the south side of 56th Street and follow 56 all the way to, follow 56 all the way to Grand and follow that all the way down to Northwest 50th. At the intersection of Northwest 56 and Grand, there is an opportunity which we will be using to connect to the Integris Baptist Hospital, which is just on the other side of the highway. We've been in discussions with Integris about a potential partnership. It's something they're very interested in. We're we're currently discussing with them exactly what their budget is and exactly what they would like the trail to look like as it connects into their facility. But essentially, we would use the existing sidewalk that goes over the Northwest 56th Bridge to connect to the Integris facility in a fashion that works for them and works for us, and they will be contributing financially to the construction and design of that. So obviously, they'll have input in terms of potentially using their branding and adding water fountains or whatever else that they would like to do there. But that's, again, another point of interest. The main part of the trail will continue on Grand. Like I said, it will cross Northwest 50th using the existing signalized intersection. At that point, it will follow behind the existing sound wall, the highway sound wall. It'll be on the west side of that sound wall, on the back side of the Edgewater Neighborhood Association between the sound wall. I'll show you an image here in a second that better describes that. That's Grand Boulevard looking south. Again, that shows the amount of right-of-way we have there for a trail. Very similar to the Northwest Expressway conditions, we have the space there to build a trail off from the road, giving some separation between the road and the trail users. This is the area behind the sound wall. This is Northwest 48th looking south. You can see there's 20 to 30 feet in most spaces. This is a city right-of-way area here, and this is where the trail would be behind the homes. Moving on, we will continue using that. That takes us all the way to 41st Street, that area behind the sound wall, at which point we will connect back with Grand Boulevard and follow that around to St. Clair Avenue, which is the crossing location that we have chosen to cross 39th Expressway. Again, a very busy street, not as bad as Northwest Expressway, but this was also a consideration. A thing to note about that crossing location is due to the proximity of Portland Avenue and also Lake Hefner Parkway, the speed of vehicles at that location is relatively low. There's also an existing signalized intersection, and there's crossing infrastructure there, which makes that crossing relatively safe and relatively simple in comparison to other options. Once we cross 39th Street, we will continue to 38th Street, which is right there, and it will turn to the east and go towards Lake Hefner Parkway. Using the highway right-of-way, we'll continue to Northwest 36th Street, which is the northern edge of Will Rogers Park. Again, using the existing signalized crossing, we'll upgrade that for pedestrian crossing and cross into Will Rogers Park. We're going to follow Grand Boulevard all the way through Will Rogers Park, crossing the creek. You'll also see there is a blue square that's indicated as a potential area for trailhead parking. We've had discussions with Will Rogers Park and the Parks Department about the best location for that. That's approximately halfway between the north and the south, so it's a good spot for parking facility, and that's an area that they've identified as a good area that works well with their plans for the park. This is a picture looking south of the St. Clair crossing of Northwest 39th. You can see there is already some facilities for pedestrian crossings. Obviously, they'll be upgraded with the trail, but you can see it's a relatively narrow crossing. This is an area in Will Rogers Park, which we've identified for the trailhead parking. The intent would be here to keep those trees where possible and incorporate those into the design of the parking area. That parking area would be for between 20 and 30 vehicles, and we would utilize the trees within that design. Moving on, we're continuing to follow the west side of Northwest Grand all the way to 16th Street, which is where we cross the highway. That is an area that's relatively straightforward. There are a number of drive crossings, but we'll cross those in the normal way of ADA compliance. Northwest 23rd Street is the largest street crossing at that location. We've been coordinating with Oklahoma City and also MKEC, who's the design consultant for the 23rd Street streetscape project that's currently under design right now. The intent there is for that project to modify the design on that project so that the pedestrian crossing has the capability to carry a 12-foot trail rather than a standard 5-foot sidewalk, so we don't have to remove what was constructed when we come in and put this trail in there. So we've been coordinating with them from that respect. And like I said, it goes all the way to 16th Street, where we will cross over to the east side of I-44. There's a picture here that will better illustrate it. This is the 16th Street crossing, the bridge over the highway. The current configuration is 2 12-foot lanes with 8-foot shoulders and 6-foot sidewalks on either side. The intent is for the trail to be signposted and painted as such that pedestrians will utilize the sidewalks and a bike lane will be painted in the shoulder. And that's just to get over the bridge. Obviously, widening that bridge is not something that was possible, so that's how we will cross over the bridge there. Once we have reached the east side of I-44, that road is also called Grand, but we'll follow the east side of Grand into the State Fairgrounds, as you can see there. Northwest 10th Street is again a major road. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have a crossing where the trail will go underneath Northwest 10th. Grand already goes under Northwest 10th. There's a bridge there, and we'll follow on the east side of Grand. That'll take us into the north section of the State Fairgrounds. We are not intending for the trail to go through the fairgrounds, but we will be going around the edge. We'll be going on the northern edge, following the south side of Northwest 10th Street, all the way to May Avenue, and then following the west side of May Avenue all the way down to Reno. May Avenue, as you're probably aware, is currently going under a streetscape project, and we've had a lot of coordination with the contractor as well as Oklahoma City and the design consultant. The intent of the trail there is to tie into the west side of the sidewalk and follow the alignment of the existing sidewalk, or the newly constructed sidewalk they're putting in right now. And that'll take us all the way to Reno. That also allows us to utilize the upgraded pedestrian crossings at the driveways into the State Fairground that they're doing as a part of the streetscape project. This is a picture on Grand Boulevard. That's actually Gervin Park, which is on the east side of Grand, just before you reach the State Fairgrounds, just north of 10th Street. And that shows the space that we have for the trail at that location, and also gives us another connection point. We'll also note, just to the north of where that picture is Linwood Elementary School. That's another point of interest that we'll be passing very close to. This is the railroad crossing at May Avenue. It's obviously the existing bridge that's there, and you can see on the far side of the street where we will be going underneath the railroad. There's an existing sidewalk there, and we'll be widening that using the same alignment, but widening it for the trail. This is the final section, the southern section. We'll continue, as I mentioned, on the east side of May Avenue, the west side of May Avenue to Reno. We'll use Reno to cross over to the east side. Again, that's an intersection that's being upgraded as part of the May Avenue streetscape, and we've taken that opportunity to coordinate with them, so they'll be upgrading their infrastructure there, their pedestrian crossings, so they'll be wide enough for a trail. And we will follow the east side of May Avenue all the way to the river, crossing under the I-40 bridge and connecting to the existing river trail, which you can see there on the north side of the river. And there is an area here for another trailhead, so this will be the southern trailhead for a parking area. This is a good place for a trailhead due to the fact that Oklahoma City owns many of the plats there, and we'll be utilizing that, so there won't be need for additional property acquisition at that location. That is the bridge under I-40. You can see there's an existing 10-foot sidewalk. The intent is to stripe that sidewalk for the trail, so we'll be utilizing that sidewalk underneath the bridge. And this picture is a little hard to see, but just beyond those trees is the river. That's looking south, and that's the point we'll connect over to the Oklahoma River. And in that area, we'll have the trailhead, the parking area. And that completes the summary of the alignment recommendation. Some of the coordination issues that are ongoing and will continue to be ongoing as we move into design. ODOT has a large input in this project based on the fact that we're close to and crossing multiple state highways. We've met with them a number of times. They've toured the alignment. They're happy with it in theory, and we're currently working on them to prepare a maintenance agreement that will be between Oklahoma City and ODOT, just to make sure that any areas where we're crossing ODOT-owned land or any area that they're concerned about, so that there is an agreement in place regarding who's going to maintain the trail, that kind of thing. Integris is something I just mentioned. We've met with them a number of times, and that will be ongoing, as they're going to be contributing financially to the project, so we'll continue to coordinate with them. Moving forward, obviously the design is the next stage, but we'll also be finalizing that agreement with ODOT. We won't be MAPS. We'll be negotiating and awarding the engineering services for the design portion of the project, and we'll be coordinating with any other state or local authorities who are affected by this project. And, of course, the property acquisition, the right-of-way acquisition that's necessary will be an early stage, an early item that we'll have to address as we move forward. And that's about it. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Russell, if you'd stay there for just a moment. This is a centerpiece of what the Trails Subcommittee is doing, and I want everybody to have a chance to have a question or ask anything you want to, but I want to start with Sue, who chairs that subcommittee, and get her comments as we go forward. And then, Sue, whenever you decide what motion you want to make, because we have one resolution in the packet and one that's been handed out,
Right.
I'm going to ask you to read the heading
I will.
of the one that you are going to move that we approve or not. Sue.
Just a comment that I think Russell helped me understand. We're in the middle of the city, and so this trail has different uses. Some people will get on this trail to ride maybe to a grocery store or to take a walk at night. And some people will use this trail from one end to the other, or to get down to the river to do something at the river. So we, as a city, are really kind of growing on our understanding about how you use trails. And we certainly have the bikers that know and love trails, but there are people like me that are excited about using trails. And I never thought I would be a trail user, other than to walk a trail. But now I'm actually thinking about changing my bike, in fact. So we had to keep that in mind, and then we had to realize or find the potential for crossing all these major streets with safety utmost in mind. So that was interesting, and gosh, it was a huge process. Public meetings, group meetings, discussion. And so, ideally, we'd like to have how many more $1 million it would take for a bridge, but right now we don't have that. But we do feel like, based on the studies that they did on traffic, that we've got the least congested and best possible place for crossing these streets, and for putting a trail that doesn't have to do a lot of eminent domain. And we're using some existing space. So,
Okay.
other questions?
Are there other questions by other board members? Michael?
I have a question related to Section 1, and I know there was a lot of controversy or a lot of consideration as to which route to make to connect to the lake. And there are, from Stars and Stripes Park south, there's some large neighborhoods, and there's existing sidewalks and trails there.
Yes.
I think are largely privately funded.
Correct.
And so they are being used, they're quite popular. And so, just from a connectivity standpoint, was there any consideration of the crossing at Portland across Northwest Highway, just to upgrade that crossing, just to allow that existing trail and those existing users to connect to this trail system?
Yeah.
Particularly for the connectivity to the hospitals. I mean, people in those neighborhoods to get down to the hospital. I mean, the hospitals, I would think, would also like some place to cross the highway and be able to connect to the neighborhoods north. So has this plan contemplated any sort of crossing improvements there at
Absolutely.
Northwest Highway in Portland?
Yeah, as a general comment, we've looked at a vast number of options. We've looked at multiple options across Expressway. Talking about Portland specifically, the trail or the alignment that you mentioned would probably connect at the Stars and Stripes Park and move south along Portland, crossing 63rd to Expressway, and then continuing along. We actually met with the Edgewater Neighborhood Association. That's the neighborhood association immediately south of the lake. As you mentioned, they have a sidewalk there that they privately funded. The neighborhood association put in money for the landscaping and for the sidewalk, and they were not very keen at all to build the trail through their neighborhood. We had long discussions with them to find out exactly why and exactly what their issues were with it, but essentially they were concerned about the safety for their neighborhood. They were concerned about the issue of removing the landscaping. If you're familiar with that sidewalk, I wish I had a picture of it. It actually
Winds.
It winds through the trees, and they have landscaping in addition to sprinkler systems that we would have to remove to construct the trail down there. But that was something that was strongly considered. But for those reasons, we started to look at other options. We didn't rule it out by any means, but that was, as a part of our decision-making process, that was factored in. And that was one of the reasons that Meridian Avenue was chosen.
And I'm not suggesting that the alignment should go along with
Right.
it. But there is existing use and existing sidewalks
absolutely.
there. I'm just saying, can we connect that to the proposed trail so there is connectivity, and people that do want to, they're currently going up and down the highways or along that trail, or even from the hospital, people wanting to, maybe walk to work from those neighborhoods over to the hospital areas.
There was concern about even crossing at Portland because of the significant traffic that is at Portland, and that is another reason why we went to Meridian. Russell, you might discuss
I
that.
mean, people are going to cross it.
Oh, you're right.
They're using
Right.
it, they're going to cross it.
Absolutely.
And we just seem like we maybe need to maybe improve the crossings and
Absolutely.
make it as safe as possible.
There's certainly an opportunity for additional connectivity there. Comparatively, if you look at the Portland crossing and the Meridian crossing, we've talked about a bridge, but we need to have an at-grade crossing. That needs to be something that's possible over Expressway. The traffic count at Portland is significantly higher than Meridian, but the main thing is actually the number of lanes. If you were to look at the turn lanes at Portland, you have multiple right and left turn lanes for the streets going north and south on Portland from Expressway, which is something you don't have at Meridian. Going northbound, you go into the lake. There's very, very low traffic volume, and that adds 20, 30 feet in terms of the distance across Portland. So from a safety perspective, Meridian is the better opportunity. And the other thing probably to note about that is because of the geometrics of the Northwest Expressway, we're not actually adding much in terms of distance to connect from Meridian as we would be to connect to Portland. But what I mean by that is we may be further to the west, but we're also further to the south. So we're only adding a minimal amount of trail to get over to Meridian, but we've offered
And again, I'm not suggesting that the trail...
I know.
I'm just saying, I think it's going to be used. I mean, people are using those trails as they exist today.
Yeah, there's an
And just to
existing
improve the
sidewalk.
safety and allow people to cross the highway and connect up to this trail system and provide the convenience of connecting and commuting along there.
Well, I
It seems like we ought to
yes.
look at the crossings, all I'm suggesting, not
Right.
extending the
Not
trail
going
north, but just
right.
look at upgrading the crossing there.
When we break this into design, we can certainly look into that a little heavier. We're breaking it into 3 contracts when we start design.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kim?
I'm sure our traffic studies were extensive. My thoughts moved to Section 3, which is in the ward that I live in. Very concerned about, did the traffic study also look at the number of accidents that occur at the intersections that we're talking about?
The traffic study that was done at this stage did not look at accidents, but that is something that will be looked at during design in more detail in terms of to figure out what infrastructure is needed at that crossing to safely cross there.
Primarily, the one at 39th and St. Clair Crossing is one that has a tremendous amount of accidents as people are actually coming off of I-44 heading westbound as that mitigates into 39th Expressway there. It's actually the first stoplight west of coming off of the freeway. And actually, as you move south, there is a small street that runs up into Grand that has a stop sign right after that stoplight. And very, very often you see people blowing through that stop sign and hitting bikers, motorcyclists as they come into that area, and unfortunately pedestrians as well. And the same thing can also at where we talk about intersection with 23rd. But I am excited that we are going through that area. I serve on the board of directors for the Windsor Area Business Group, and we're very excited not only about the streetscape, but how it can bring that trail in there, because walkability is a very important factor for the success of our district. So thank you for that consideration.
One other thing I might mention, too, we had extensive discussion about 39. And just the idea that when it comes to design, caution signs, signage about the trail, all of those pieces, making sure there's the pedestrian crossing lights that are, well, I think they're actually in place now, but making sure that all of that is really delineated well for any time we cross a major. And, there's really only a few major streets.
I think another big burden that this entire project encompasses is public education. We can talk about what we learn at the subcommittee levels, public meetings, but certainly filtering down into the neighborhoods and those areas that will be using it, so that people do understand that as you're driving through your area of town, there's new things to watch out for.
Right.
I relate a lot to the blinking turn light. We have a lot of signals now, and people just sit there because they don't know what to do with it. Eventually they'll learn, but of course public safety is paramount everywhere, but a big burden on this project for sure.
Absolutely. That's a very good point.
Dee?
Speaking of safety, are there any phones or 911 sort of places along the trails where if people get into trouble, they can, I know everyone has a cell phone, but sometimes they might not bring it, or...
Right.
That's something we looked at with the river trail also, and as you said, most people have cell phones, and what the Parks Department told us is, for the most part, the blue emergency phones are vandalized beyond belief, and it's just not something that gets used.
Something that I've seen, speaking to that in other cities, is that, as we all know, firehouses are safe houses. At some points along trails, a business might be established that it's a safe house or a safe place for that route, so that a small signage could indicate if you need emergency help, you could go to this vicinity.
Nice idea.
There's certainly an opportunity for that.
Other questions or comments? Sue, are you ready to make a motion?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to move the resolution approving the trail alignment study report for the MAPS 3 Phase 2 Trail Improvements I-44 West Trail, and considering additional funding for an additional crossing at Northwest Expressway, project M3-T002.
That would be the resolution that was handed out at the meeting.
What is that additional, you're talking about a bridge at Meridian? You're still talking about Meridian, but you're talking about a bridge?
Is there a second? The motion's been made and seconded. Maybe.
All right, just want to make clear that it is amending the item that was originally on the agenda.
Yes.
I think everybody here understands that. We'll make sure everybody understands in the audience.
We had one resolution in your packet. This one is amended, and it is amended as read by Sue. So are we all clear on what we're voting on? It's been moved and Michael.
Read the latter part about the...
Sure. Improvements I-44 West Trail and considering additional funding for an additional crossing at Northwest Expressway, Project M3-T002.
What does that mean, considering?
Well, if we had a couple million around, we would like to have it for a crossing. How many million would that take?
It was several million, and what the subcommittee wanted to do is just put out there that they have a desire that and let this board know and eventually city council know that if there's additional funding out there, they would like to use it for this purpose.
Would that additional funding be from MAPS or from another source?
It could be any of that.
We are open to any source.
Donations.
The reason why I asked that question, we have had several items with increases, and just very curious to know that we are keeping track of those increases, and if they are included in our obligations, how much of the contingency are we consuming?
We are keeping track of that right now. Other than the sidewalks that was allocated an additional $9 million, and the Whitewater, which was allocated about 2.9, there hasn't been any allocations of the contingency funds. So there's significant contingency funds, and in your budget report you can see that at the beginning. So we are keeping track of that.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. We appreciate it. I want to ask a question of the board now. We've got some people here who are anxious to make a presentation to us, and I know that we're running behind schedule and that we started late. My intention is to continue until we hear this presentation and until we complete our agenda. If that is an inconvenience to anyone, well, if you feel you need to leave, we'd like to maintain a quorum, obviously, because there are some action items, but my plan is to complete the agenda. All right? All right, that brings us to the next item. Is that item 8?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Item 8 is recommend resolution approving preliminary report for MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center Number 1, Project M3-H002. As you know, we currently have 2 wellness centers in design right now, and this is the first wellness center, and this is the preliminary report for that wellness center. We have Ryan Eshelman from GSB here today to give us a presentation.
Welcome, Ryan. You're our tallest architect. We welcome you.
That's an interesting distinction. Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation to visit with you all this morning. We're excited to share with you our preliminary report and looking forward to moving forward into the final plans phase of the project so that we can see this become a reality. I'm here today with Doug and Ellen Gallo with Lifespan Design Studio. They are our critical consultants on this project. They assist in the design and planning and programming of senior centers all over the country and have been an enormous asset to our team. And we're also joined by Bill Fleming with Healthy Living, who will be the operator for Senior Center Number 1. Just a reminder, the site for Senior Center Number 1 is in the northeast corner of the current Putnam City Baptist Church property, just north of Northwest 112th and Rockwell. This corner of the site will be transferred to ownership with the city, and the construction will occur on this portion of the property. The first key step in this process was programming, and we went through a series of meetings, site tours, review sessions with key participants, including Doug and Ellen, the MAPS office with the city, of course, Bill Fleming and Healthy Living, and the program consultant, all discussing how to determine the key components to go into this senior center. One of the first steps we took, and many of the folks on the Senior Center subcommittee had already made this, our design team went with the MAPS office to Rogers, Arkansas, to see the senior center there. all their facilities, tour it, and visit with their staff that operate that facility. Very helpful in kind of laying the groundwork for some of the expectations and comparative facility. The basis for our programming was the MAPS project requirements, which were drafted as a generic document to address all of the senior centers that were to be built into the program, and Healthy Living's operating proposal, which outlined how they intended to staff the facility, the programs they intended to operate, their vision for how to serve the citizens with this facility. So using those tools and working with Healthy Living in the MAPS office, we talked through many of the components that were originally listed in the project requirements and determined priorities for those components and their inclusion. Obviously, many of those were high demand components, especially those focused not only on physical fitness, but on social health, on connectivity, and social engagement. So as we talked through those facility types and we examined the various costs associated with building each of those, obviously swimming pools are more expensive than storage closets. That helped us determine what we could include in the building and the sizes of those various spaces. And you'll find that we included all the high priority items, and even those that were considered medium or low priority, we've incorporated into the design through multi-use and flexible spaces. One thing I want to make an important distinction on, the original project requirements contemplated the potential for 2 swimming pools, a dedicated lap pool and a second pool for fitness activities and water aerobics classes and general use. As we examined our budget, we determined that that was going to be very, very hard, if not impossible, to accomplish. Further, when we visited Rogers and noticed that they had both a dedicated lap pool and a fitness pool, the feedback we got from their center was that those 2 pools were very expensive to operate. Their lap pool had a few dedicated users but was quiet most of the day, and their fitness pool was, if anything, too small, was in demand all the time, and was exceptionally well used, both for its size and configuration and for its warmer water temperature. So the concept that we developed with our team and with our pool consultant from St. Louis was the use of a hybrid fitness pool. You can see an example of this here at a brand new senior center, incredibly nice senior center in Grand Prairie, Texas. It includes both fitness, general use functions, and some lap swimming opportunity. Another project in Temple, Texas, which does the very same thing. So that's what we've adopted for this project. It's a pool that will range in depth from 3.5 feet to 6 feet. It will have ramp access, stair access, and lift access for people of all ability levels, and it will be large enough to accommodate lap swimmers as well as classes and general swimming at the same time. So it serves as the best of all worlds for our function, and it fits within our budget. So this is the program document that came out of all of those conversations, sizing all of the spaces, the offices, providing storage. That's one of the things we learned in Rogers, where they had all these nice spaces and they had furniture stacked in the hallways and the corners because they had not included enough storage space. They'd also felt like they had been short on social space, just place for people to engage socially. When we look at senior health, holistic health is our focus, and social engagement is a huge part of physical and mental health. So just to review quickly the preliminary plans, this is the site plan. As I mentioned, north is to your right here, so it is not at the top of the sheet. This is sitting in that northeast corner as we described. We'll have a dedicated drive off of Rockwell, and we'll connect into the Putnam City Baptist Church Drive as well. The parking lot will be designed to be senior sensitive, so it will be largely curbless. Fewer curbs to trip over. It will have sidewalks between the noses of the cars, so you're not forced to walk behind vehicles which may be backing up. All the parking spaces are within 300 feet of the front door, which is highly advantageous for this population. And we also have the benefit of overflow parking in the existing church lot. You'll notice there is concealed service behind the building. The entrance faces south towards the parking. And there, along Rockwell, there is a dedicated area of programmed outdoor and landscape spaces which will engage with the rest of the building. The building itself is organized as an L. You can see basically along the vertical leg of the L on the right-hand side of that drawing are a lot of the social and multi-use spaces. So we'll have classroom spaces and activity rooms that can be divided, subdivided, used for classes and dances, and meetings can also be rented for third-party use. The hub of the center is the lobby there in the bottom right corner. That will be a social space that's intended that when you arrive, you see a lot of activity, you make eye contact with people you know, you see people having coffee and drinking and reading. There will be digital signage, potentially a media wall where you can see the news events, but a highly active space, help center, check-in desk there for orientation. As you move left down the other leg of the L, you see all those large purple spaces, which are the fitness and activity areas, including aerobics and yoga studio, a full-size gymnasium with a large enough apron space around the court to be an indoor walking surface. That was one key thing we identified from Rogers and others, that there are really expensive outdoor track and walking elements that can be created, but they get very little use because people like to be indoors. That's why mall walking is so popular. It's nice every day of the year. So we'll be providing indoor walking surface 365 days a year in that venue. We'll also have an equipped fitness area with treadmills and ellipticals and weight machines that will be staffed with folks to assist those who may be unfamiliar or new to that, to physical exercise in that environment. And then I mentioned our hybrid fitness pool. And of course, there are administrative offices and storage areas and support spaces included with that. This is about a 40,000 square foot facility. Here are a few renderings depicting the facility. This is the view from Rockwell as you turn into the entrance drive. You can see the drop off there. You can also see some of the outdoor space behind that low fence. And the new sidewalk we'll be constructing along Rockwell in front of our property. This is a view of the, like I said, the main lobby and lounge. This is the high-energy core of the building where you'll engage and orient. You can see soft seating and tables. You can see the coffee and light snack food service facility. That's the check-in desk there in your foreground, and connectivity to all the spaces from here, and direct connectivity to outdoor activity spaces through the glass at the end of the room. This is another common area near the fitness space. One of the things that fitness centers do well is provide you with treadmills and ellipticals, but they don't really like you to hang out all day and visit with your friends and get on your iPad and have coffee. We want to encourage that, so we've got some social space near our fitness center as well. It also creates good visual connectivity. One of the goals of this facility is to get folks who are new to physical exercise engaged, and so they may come to this facility for weeks or months and not have the and observe what's going on and realize there are folks that are just like me, that are my age and my ability level, and they're exercising. So we're also using this as a way to encourage folks to explore those opportunities. And this is a view of the hybrid fitness pool. We'll have daylight in that space. As I mentioned, stairs, ramp, and lift access. The ramp is ideal for folks who can't navigate the stairs but don't want to go through the process of being lifted down into the pool. And there's all the locker room and support spaces adjacent. We've had our construction estimate prepared for this portion of the work, and as you can see, our $8.6 million budget has several items that have to be included in that. We have determined that the estimate for our construction cost, including the site work, is a little over $7.8 million, and that includes about a 9% contingency that we expect things to come up during the design process that will have to be accounted for in our budget. And then other elements inside the building, such as the fitness equipment and the furniture and the art. So we feel like we are very close to our budget, and we'll certainly be monitoring that closely as we move forward into design and designing accordingly with that budget. The schedule for our work, once we receive approval for this phase, we'll be completing the drawings this fall. The bidding process will occur in probably the end of the first quarter of next year. So construction, you could see things happening in the spring on this site if things continue to move at the pace that we've anticipated. So that's a quick tour of where we are in the building that's being conceived, and my compliments to all the folks that have been involved in the process, the subcommittees. All the feedback's been wonderful, and we're really excited about the product that we're moving forward with, and certainly welcome your questions.
Well, I'd like to thank Ryan, of course, and Doug and Ellen. and also Bill Fleming from the beginning with Healthy Living, Inc. From the beginning, the problem is with this subcommittee, I guess if I'm maybe Bill Fleming, is that we got a lot of old folks on the subcommittee who have pretty strong feelings about what needs to be done at senior centers. And Bill with...
Michael, I kind of like older people.
Bill was just so good at listening to some of the most of our concerns and addressing them. And publicly, I want to thank Bill for doing that. Ryan, can you remind us, I know, but can you tell everyone in terms of what your thoughts are when the construction will begin and when we might have an opening?
The construction schedule itself will be determined by the general contractor who's selected. But as I mentioned, we will complete our work about the end of this year, and then in the first quarter there will be a process of advertising for bids and going through that process. So by the early second quarter or the spring, that's when I would expect construction would commence, and that construction period would probably be in the 16 to 18 month range, I would guess. But again, that will be dependent upon the general contractor.
Okay. Those are my thoughts, Tom. And again, thank you all for all your hard work.
Gloria, did you have any? You also serve on that subcommittee.
No, again, we do appreciate the presentation from yesterday and today, and he answered most of our questions that we had on yesterday.
Further, any other questions, comments? Michael?
This comment, I'm just impressed. It seemed like you've got everything incorporated, almost everything incorporated that was ever conceived. So I know earlier on discussions there was talk about some trade-outs and things, and I guess maybe the adjustment of the pool and some of those things allowed you to make all this.
One of the benefits, this type of facility, like many, flexibility is the key. We think we know how this is going to be used, and Bill thinks he knows how he wants to operate, but everything's going to have to adjust as it opens and as technology changes and years go by. So we've tried to incorporate flexibility into the design, and that's given us the ability to take, for example, we didn't have a dedicated dining room because that was not something that Bill Fleming proposed as part of their operating proposal, but our lobby is being designed to have food service from a cafe, so we've got dining opportunities in our building, so that flexibility gives us the ability to kind of try to be all things to all people.
I guess I was interested in the comments you made about the outdoor. I guess there's very little outdoor programming or outdoor activities, no walking trail planned outdoors or anything in
there is not an elaborate outdoor program. We have had to make some decisions about where we spend our money. As I mentioned, along Rockwell and outside of our public spaces, we will have hardscape and lawn and formal garden and potentially bocce or shuffleboard courts or some programmed area that's really nice and well maintained. There's also area north of the building where I think Bill plans some community gardening activities. And there's some open space for some outdoor sports activities. But largely, the large expenditure items, like you mentioned, the walking course, we shied away from that based upon just making hard decisions about how we spend our money and talking to other facilities about usage. So the church has large property that connects to this, and they may have plans in the future to prepare a walking circuit that connects the sidewalks on the two sides around the back of their property, but that's not been included in our project budget.
Let me just reiterate, it's not all budget-driven, though. The meetings they had with focus groups and the visits they had with other centers indicated that the outdoor activity is not.
Rogers is a perfect example because they have a gorgeous outdoor area, not only with the walking zones, but with little stations for physical activity, and they're beautiful, and they cannot bribe people to go out and use them even on the nicest of days because they have an indoor walking track and they have indoor fitness equipment, and those are heavily used.
And so I guess kind of related to that, the connectivity to the other areas, we don't have any trails, I guess, to connect, so everybody's pretty much going to be driving into it, I guess.
We will have a sidewalk in front of our property, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, there will also be some connecting sidewalks associated with...
there will be. The MAPS Sidewalks project has that mile of alignment in there.
Along Rockwell?
Yes, sir.
We certainly want to encourage people to connect by foot, and those in the adjacent neighborhoods that are not having to cross, multiple major streets will probably take advantage of that. But we're also in a suburban landscape and the car is the mode of choice at this point for connecting to most facilities.
Dee, you had a question?
Nice job. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dee?
I'm sorry. This is better than I ever imagined. I didn't know what this was going to be when we first started, so I really envisioned something really great and, like you said, really flexible. But now we've got this great facility. How does it work from here? Are you going to have transportation available to people that can't drive? Will there be daycare, quote-unquote, sort of things where people can come for the day? How is that all going to work, and who's going to be in charge of that?
Well, Bill and Healthy Living, as the operator, will make determinations about the specific programs they're going to have, and if there are any, as you mentioned, transportation programs, any of those. So I can't answer those directly, and I suspect that as we continue the design and construction, Bill and his team are going to be assembling the final programming and staff to address all of those issues. But I can tell you that this facility is designed to be a place where people pop in for 30 minutes or an hour and work out or go to a meeting or, go to meet the bridge club and go home. It's also envisioned as a place where people, particularly who have very few opportunities for other social connection, come and hang out for half the day, and we want to encourage that. We want social spaces where people don't feel guilty for dropping down with a book and spending hours there.
Just a thought, particularly in that specific question. One of the things that, of course, if you recall, that we have talked about, that these centers are very unlikely to be cookie cutter type centers, and they're all going to be unique in their own way. And I'm not sure, I don't recall a specific conversation with Bill, and maybe it's in his mind, in Healthy Living, Inc., in terms of, say, adult daycare for seniors. But interesting enough, in that particular question, I do know that the second operating partner, North Care Community Mental Health Center, is in discussion with Bill Weaver and the Daily Living Centers, and they're very likely planning space for adult daycare. So I think what's great about begin going forth is that we are going to see similar programs, similar things going on, of course, in all the centers, but also the opportunity for some different things depending on what the operating partner brings.
One final comment. Doug and Ellen have mentioned they work all over the country, and they see lots of communities recognizing this need, but they commented on how amazing it is that there's a community who is preparing ground-up new facilities from the start to accommodate this. Most of the time these facilities are crammed into existing facilities where they can be found, or people spend years talking about the center that never has a building. So we have a real opportunity here to be kind of a national leader in developing these programs, and as these facilities come online, I think we'll find a lot of other communities coming and finding out, how did we do this, what did we build, can we do the same thing?
Kim?
Again, I'll just echo that this is great work, but I think this is also a time to congratulate Michael Dover for the amount of
Blood,
what
sweat,
he
and
brought to
tears.
the table on this project. And thank you for taking your retirement years and getting back into the healthcare industry. But certainly, I much like Dee, I could never imagine what one of these centers could look like, and now I can't imagine what they would look like without you.
You're so kind.
Other comments or questions? All right, then. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'd like to move the item.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution approving this preliminary report for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1. This is a day we've been looking forward to. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Well, congratulations to all involved. We're glad to be moving forward. Great report. Doug and Ellen, thank you. Bill, you stayed with us through thick and thin. We appreciate you staying the course. And Ryan, great presentation. Thanks to all involved. Okay, that takes us to item 9.
Item 9 is recommend joint resolution approving change order number 4 and amendment number 3 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 1, Project 2 parking lot improvements, increase of $51,728.31, Project M3-F001A/WC-0805/SC-0897. This is As I said, change order and amendment for a Fairgrounds project. The Fairgrounds did not have a quorum yesterday, but those present did agree that this should be moved on. There are 4 items on this, well, 3 items on the change order and 2 items on the amendment. Remember that amendments are items that prices were already established through bidding, and we have itemized amounts, and we just increase those up or down. So on the change order part, there's a signage revision. The Fairgrounds requested that's, and a lot of this comes from at the end of the project when we have money left over, that they requested that the ADA signs be changed from just standard hard galvanized poles that in their experience get hit and bent or knocked over, that we install these ADA signs that have a spring mount on them, so that if somebody bumps them, they just kind of lay down and they come back up. And then on item 2 is an additional ADA ramp. There was a section of the parking lot. They're right adjacent to the Fairgrounds offices that wasn't included in the project, and because it is right there next to the parking lot we did, and it also connects with the museum that's out there, and it is ADA accessible, that we've added that into the project to do that corner. Some adjusted unit quantities. You can see that in the change order itself. It's like item 1 is to take out the ADA signs that will be replaced with the change order signs. So it's routine construction items.
Any comments from the committee, subcommittee?
Yes, we do want to go ahead. We're on track at the State Fairgrounds. We didn't have a quorum, but we do heartily recommend that we adapt these. So should I make a resolution? Or
I think the resolution that we have in our packet is before us. If you want to make a motion, that'd be great.
I so move.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the change order. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's approved. Number 10.
Item 10 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum numbers 1, 2, and 3 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2 New Expo Building, awarding contract to Atlas General Contractors LLC, base bid plus alternates 1, 2, 3, and 4, plus all unit prices, $36,922,000, and approving contract and bonds project M3-F002. Again, this comes out of the Fairgrounds Subcommittee. It's a great day that we have the Expo building bid and come in under budget, and we are ready to award this project, and we recommend awarding it.
Wow. Any comment, Dee?
Yes, we absolutely do. We want to move ahead.
All right. Further questions?
My only question is, how are they getting everything done over there under budget? Kudos.
Well, Dee's just a great manager. I mean, that's all we can say. All right. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution as presented in item 10. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 11, David.
Item 11 is recommend resolution approving change order number 3 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Phase 2, Project 2 improvements, increase of I'm getting in a hurry here, $48,000.
Perfect.
$853.79. Project M3-R005A. I think all the big numbers in the last one threw me. This is change order 3 for various items at the Boathouse District, and you can see those in the change order. One of the items that was questioned in the subcommittee was the remobilization. There's $20,000 in there for remobilization of a crane, and that's because the Phase 2 project is ongoing right now, and they have a crane down there to place the starting towers, but we're still waiting, and we have been waiting for many months on approval to place the starting tower between the two I-35 bridges. And because the contractor has completed that work, he will have to remobilize, and remobilize means put that crane on a trailer and drive it down and unload it and get ready to do the work again. So that's the one that was questioned yesterday. Be able to answer any questions.
Dee, any comment about that? Shall we approve it?
I make a motion that we approve it.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Further discussion?
I just have one quick question, I'm sorry. On the repair that needs to be done, is this falling under the MAPS 3 costs at this time because the project has not been received by the city?
It is.
Thank you.
Further, any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Next item.
Item 12 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum number 1 for the MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Whitewater Facility site mowing, weed eating, weed control, and debris removal, extending time to award the contract, awarding contract to A&A Maintenance Incorporated not to exceed $75,000, and approving contract and bonds, project M3-R007. This is for the area that the Whitewater facility will be constructed, but it's for the area outside of what is being constructed right now. This is the area that will be for expansion. Since we own the property, we are responsible for maintaining that property in good fashion. So this is a contract for that mowing.
Questions?
This may sound really silly, but this morning I did read something on Facebook about where I think the water department is using goats to mow areas of the town. And they have a Great Pyrenees dog that shepherds them around. I was wondering if any of those kinds of resources make sense to utilize on our projects.
We will certainly look into that.
I think Mike Mize is an expert on using goats to keep weeds down. You have any comment, Mike? Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
I move we accept the motion.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimously adopted. That brings us to the item of new business. Any members have any new business they want to consider? The next item is the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board Subcommittee reports, and we've heard from every subcommittee. I do want to give both Nathaniel and Kim, let's see, how many seconds or minutes to give us a brief update. They both had big days yesterday. Let's start with Kim. Ladies first.
Thank you, sir. I'll be very brief. Parks did meet yesterday. We did not have a quorum, but we received an amazing update from Hargraves on how the master plan has begun into design phase and begin to see how visualization turns into reality. And our group yesterday was just thrilled with everything. We had a lot of great questions and answers, and certainly as we're moving forward, it's amazing to see how all the projects are acting together, how all our consultants are working together, and we've got some great things, and can't wait until we share that report with this committee.
Great job. Thank you. Nathaniel?
Tuesday, City Council approved our RFP, so that'll be going out. And November 13th is the due date for these proposals from manufacturers for the actual streetcar vehicles. And the selection process will be a matter of months. Since it won't be cut and dry, it won't just be who's cheapest. It'll be who can deliver and who has a good track record and who really fulfills all the technical and design requirements. So that was big news for Tuesday. And then our subcommittee meeting yesterday, we, among other things, reviewed potential stops. So about 22 stops that we're looking at, spaced 3 to 4 blocks each, to achieve the kind of runtime and frequency that we envision. And then got some kind of estimates on what each stop might cost and how that might all play out. And also part of that discussion with the convention center area study, and very pleased to see how the streetcar will incorporate into this overall plan for the convention center area.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I don't want to thwart anybody else if anyone has any other subcommittee. Anyone? All right. That takes us to the informational items under item 15. These were included in your packet, and we've had a chance to review them. Are there any questions for David about any of those items that are just provided for your information? If not, that takes us to item 16, update of the MAPS 3 program. David.
Real quickly, I just hit some highlights of things that haven't been talked about. Phase 2 improvements continue at the river, and as you probably know, the Whitewater facility was awarded by council on Tuesday. And we saw Wellness Center preliminary report today, and Wellness Center number 2 is also underway. So those are both in design. Trails and sidewalks are very active right now. Phase 1 sidewalk projects 1, 2, and 3 are under construction. Phase 1 Trails Project 1 and 2 are under construction. Phase 2 Project 1 sidewalks have been awarded and has begun construction. And Phase 3 sidewalks are in design, and you saw the alignment study today, so that will very soon be in design. Conceptual design continues on the convention center, and you saw the study today for the area. Fairgrounds parking and utilities are complete and will come to you as final very soon, and the expo building, as we voted on today, will go to council on the 9th for award. And streetcar continues, so things are very busy.
As they should be. Any questions for David? That brings us to item 17. Are there any comments by members of the board? Staff, anything additional, David?
No, sir.
Any member of the staff? This is the opportunity for any citizens who are here to make any comments they'd like to have. Anyone have a question for the board? Hearing none. It has been moved that we adjourn. It has been seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.